Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we're discussing the latest generation of the Omega Seamaster Aqua Terra. This is the post-2017 variant, 41 millimeters in diameter in stainless steel. The watch measures 13.5 millimeters thick, 47.3 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip, and it has a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. We'll throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, and you can see that the surf and turf all-arounder from the Seamaster collection looks awfully good on my wrist. Being just over 47 millimeters lug to lug, it's fairly short across the wrist, making this watch manageable for a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference. And though it's not particularly thin, it does have a reasonably slim profile and a sloped bezel, so it should slide under cuffs fairly easily. Taking a look at the strap, you can see it is a rubber strap with a contrasting stitch. The stitch not strictly necessary since it's one continuous piece of rubber from front to back, but it's a nice nostalgic look. It appears artisanal and adds a little bit of color contrast. There's some molded in character lines as well as a cross-hatched pattern down the center. You can see that Omega fits a little conforming end piece to better mate the strap to the case. There's no daylight between strap and case for a nice, handsome, upscale, integrated look. The buckle is familiar to Omega fans. It's been around since the early 2000s. Externally, it is polished and satinated for contrast. It has twin triggers that must both be pressed to release it, so it's secure on the wrist. You take the strap, you tuck it in, you buckle it down, and once it's closed, all the excess length fits underneath the clasp body on the strap for a nice clean look without extra length flapping in the breeze. Taking a look at the case, we know it well. Lyre-style lugs. They've been around on Omegas since the early 60s. That means nothing more than we have inboard and outboard lug bevels. So you can see we have that inboard and outboard bevel with the outer bevel being polished. The bevel shrinks at the mid-case and then expands over the lug hoods. The mid-case is longitudinally satinated. We have here a conical crown profile. You can see it's both polished and media blasted. And then we have a slight inward step to the case. And then we have a conical bezel that's all of high polish, and the second generation Omega Teak Deck dial. So the Teak Deck Generation 1 went top to bottom. Teak Deck Generation 2, 2017 on, goes side to side. We have a little downwardly stepped track for reading seconds and minutes, a nostalgic, vintage-inspired broad arrow minute hand. And then for 2017, the date moved from 3 down to 6, which is where it is here. Note that the date disc is the same color as the dial. I always love to see that. There are 2 subsidiary setting modes. One is hacking or stop seconds. Stop the seconds hand, stop the watch, set it to a reference time. There's also a time zone adjustment feature. Note, not displacing the minute hand, not stopping the seconds hand, but I'm able to jump time zones and even drive the date forward or backwards depending on whether I'm moving east or west. All of the indices have been faceted with a contrast of satin and polish, and the fact that they are all applied, as is the Omega logo, speaks to upscale intent here. This watch looks quite a bit more expensive than it is. No printed features here. The crown is screw down. The watch is 150 meters water resistant, and as you can see, despite not being a diving Seamaster, it is quite well loomed, and all 3 hands are loomed, so you know even in the dark that your watch is running. Flipping it all over, you can see that this one is a master chronometer, which means we have the latest METAS certified caliber 8900. Now, yes, it meets the COSC standards, but it goes beyond that. Fully cased up, the COSC compliant movement now receives a 6-position test of chronometry, not 5 as in the COSC, but we also have a test of winding efficiency, power reserve, shock resistance, chronometry, yes, but also anti-magnetism and water resistance. All of this going into a comprehensive test co-developed by Omega and the Swiss Federal Institute of Metrology that yields the certification Master Chronometer if the movement passes. It's a bidirectional winder with a 60-hour power reserve. It has 2 barrels, the idea here being to smooth out the surge when fully wound and reduce the loss of amplitude after 18, 24, 36 hours. Twin barrel movements have a more even torque curve, better timekeeping throughout the power reserve. It's a 39 joule movement. that beats away at 25,200 vibrations per hour. And that quirky beat rate is something you'll find throughout the swatch group on watches that use silicon anti-magnetic hairsprings, which this does. But it's more than anti-magnetic. It's practically amagnetic, resistant to over 15,000 Gauss. Now, it also features a coaxial escapement as developed by George Daniels in 1974, sold to Omega, and ultimately industrialized by Omega in 1999. Today, the tri-level coax, which is what we have right here, and you can just barely see it. There's a separate bridge below the balance, but it achieves improved chronometry, reduced maintenance requirements, and extended power reserve. We've got a full balance bridge and a free-sprung balance to make the watch more shock tolerant. The free-sprung balance also allowing for more precise timing adjustments. And then it's nicely decorated, though all machine finished, it's handsomely so, with spiral arabesque Côte de Genève engine turning on the base plate, handsome and neat machine finished bevels. We have both polished and blackened screws, which are quite attractive, and then satination on the stud holder, as well as train wheels. All told, quite impressive. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.